Hello, I'm Michael Townsend Hicks, and I'm a lecturer in philosophy of science and technology here at the University of Glasgow. You are someone who's interested in studying philosophy at Glasgow. Maybe you're thinking of applying, maybe you've received an offer, or maybe you're just wondering what it's like to study philosophy and why someone would do it. No matter why, I'm going to tell you how we do philosophy at the University of Glasgow. The plan's pretty simple. First, I'm going to talk in general about what philosophy is. Then I'll say a little bit about why you might be interested in studying it. Then I'll talk about our own program and how we teach philosophy at Glasgow. And then I'll wrap up by saying why it might be good for you to study philosophy here. So first, what is philosophy? One of my favorite philosophers, Wilfrid Sellars, said that philosophy studies how things, in the broadest sense of the term, hang together in the broadest sense of the term. What I think he meant by that is that philosophy looks at the most abstract sort of questions about what things exist, from numbers to atoms, and asks, how do these things connect? How is it that mathematical objects like numbers are used to understand the physical world? That's one of the philosophical questions we ask. Another is why? Why do things exist, or why should we act in certain ways? And that's a question about how these different things, actions, values, decisions, connect, how they hang together. Philosophers study a variety of things. These things include what you are, or what I am, what makes us people, what makes us persist through time, why I'm the same person I was when I was younger. We also ask what we should or ought to do. So we ask questions of ethics, not just about what exists, but about how we ought to act, what should exist or what there should be. We ask what things there are and how we know about them. I mentioned abstract objects like mathematical objects, numbers. That's one of the things that I wonder about, whether they really exist, how we know about them. But there are also questions about how tiny unobserved things exist and how we know about those. Finally, we ask how it all hangs together. So we ask, what are the values that shape our understanding of the world? What are the concepts that allow us to group different things? How are those reflections of a real external world, and how much of them are imparted by us in something that we use to aid our own understanding? Those are the sorts of questions that we ask as philosophers. But more than a set of questions, I think that philosophy is a method. It's a way of approaching certain questions. And that method is a method that involves primarily constructing and evaluating arguments. Arguments are sets of reasons that connect to one another to deliver a conclusion. They're reasons to believe something. And in philosophy, we look at these sets of reasons and we see what they might tell us to believe. Um, we often evaluate them critically. So a big part of the philosophical method is clearly and explicitly going through the reasoning for some conclusion and then critically evaluating each step. Is that a good inference? Is that a good premise? Is it a good thing to believe? And quite often, philosophy involves dialogue, where two people who disagree will each present and criticize arguments for opposed viewpoints. As a student of philosophy, you'll both learn how to reason, as well as how to evaluate and critically examine your own reasoning. Think, why do I believe this? And kind of explicitly look at the reasons you have for things. That helps you form better reasons, but it also helps you politely disagree with people who have other beliefs. And in philosophy, disagreement often happens, but it's done in a way that's respectful, and also reasoned, where we look at one another's reasons for believing what they believe and try to give them reasons to believe something else often. At the end of the day, even though philosophers often disagree about what the correct view is in any discipline, about what the correct view about what's right and wrong is, or what the correct view about what knowledge is, we often disagree about these things. But we do think that by examining our reasoning critically, we're getting closer and closer to the true view. And even if we keep disagreeing, I think uh, some of us, ideally, will have found the truth in some areas. Why should you study philosophy? Well, first, philosophy allows you to understand who you are. So it allows you to understand what your own values are. Not only does it help you make decisions, it gives you ways of reasoning towards decisions, but it allows you to kind of talk about and understand on the basis of what you would make one decision or another. and how that's a reflection of what your values are and who you are. It also helps you develop and defend your own opinions. So that means it helps you make arguments, which is valuable if you're trying to convince someone of something else. But it's also a way for you to just be explicit in your own mind about why you believe the things you do. And maybe think about why you might change your mind about important questions that bear on your life, both in a daily way and in the long-term way, how you might formulate your life, how you should think about what would make your life valuable, what sort of long-term goals you might want to take on. Um, Philosophical education emphasizes reasoning and clear communication. So by examining the questions we do and the way we do, you'll gain the ability to not just make your own decisions or come up with your own views in a reasoned way, but also clearly communicate why you're doing something, which is valuable in any kind of workplace setting where, when you are collaboratively making a decision, you need to clearly examine the reasons for and against that decision and communicate them in a clear and concise way. And that's what we emphasize in philosophy, both in philosophy education and in the method of doing philosophy as researchers. At Glasgow, we teach this in two stages. So there's a pre-honor stage and then an honor stage. At the pre-honors level, we ask four questions over the course of 4 semesters. The first question in the first semester is, how should I think? And this is where we talk about the method of arguing and the method of critical thinking that we engage throughout your time doing philosophy. We both show what it takes to reason logically and how we develop and critically evaluate arguments. Um, but we also give you kind of the reasons that we're doing this, why it is that this is taken to be a rational way of developing your own reasoning and belief. In the second semester, we ask, how should I live? So we look at the source of values and how we apply them, and ask questions, both practical questions in ethics and quite general questions about what it is for something to be good or bad. In your third semester, so the beginning of your second year, we ask, who am I? That looks at both what makes you a person, what it is to be a person, how your experiences might be connected to your physical body, how you persist through time, how you're the same person when you're young and when you're old. Why is that? What makes you the same person? And finally, questions of your social identity. What is it to have a social identity at all? To be of a certain nationality, a certain race, or a certain gender? What are those social categories, and how should you think of your place in them? Then in the final pre-honors semester, we ask a series of questions about what there is. Those are both questions about things like abstract objects. Are numbers things? What are they? We look at arguments for and against the existence of God. And we have a section on philosophy of science where we ask how science tells us about the external world and how we gain knowledge in that way. These are delivered through a series of lectures and collaborative classes. The lectures do involve some participation from students, but the collaborative classes are entirely focused on activities led by a team that involves both the lecturers and graduate student teaching assistants. And these are done in a combination of discussion and activities in small groups. These classes are assessed through quizzes, an essay, and a final exam, all of which are writing based. You then have 2 honors years where you can look at a variety of more specific topics that you will have approached uh, in an introductory way in your pre-honors years. This includes ethics, what's right and wrong and why, philosophy of mind, how does my mind connect to my body, gender and race, what are they? How do they structure our social lives? Pain and pleasure, what's that? What is it for something to hurt? We also talk about philosophy of science, causation, logic. There are quite a lot of classes, and you can take any three on any semester. This gives you an ability to customize your education and study the things that you're most interested in. These are taught by experts in the field, so subject area specialists, and they have a variety of teaching methods. So we have small group discussions. The lecturers themselves at this level are in smaller rooms with smaller groups, so there's more participation and discussion during the lecture. And the assessment also varies between classes, with some classes involving things like presentation, group discussions, um, or reading reaction portfolios as part of the assessment package. We also have a class on doing philosophy, which imparts practical skills in discussion, presentation, critical reading, and critical thinking. A senior research dissertation, which allows you to explore a topic of your own choosing in a full semester with one faculty member supervising and discussing with you. All of our classes emphasize clarity, logical thinking, concise and clear writing, and polite, reasoned disagreement in discussion. At Glasgow, you'll be taught by leading researchers in the field that you're studying. We have particular strengths in epistemology, philosophy of mind, feminist philosophy, metaphysics, and ethics. And this includes two world-leading research centers, the Center for the Study of Perceptual Experience, which studies what perception is, how we learn about the world through perception, and how that the mental experience of perception relates to the physical changes in your mind, in your brain and body. And then we have another research center called Cogito, which studies the nature of knowledge, which is epistemology. We're also home to Hypatia, a top journal in feminist philosophy. And we have ongoing research projects in philosophy of artificial intelligence, which is something that I work on, and philosophy of virtual reality and augmented reality. Students are very involved in Glasgow, and we have a very strong student community. We have a philosophy society, which organizes um, events, talks, and debates. We have a reading group on minorities in philosophy, which collaborates and meets to discuss questions in philosophy of race and philosophy of gender. And we have a thoughts podcast, which is a student organized podcast that you can listen to yourself, which talks about general philosophical questions. We compare well to our local competitors in the National Student Survey. So our students are generally more satisfied, according to the National Survey of Student Satisfaction, than students at nearby universities in Scotland. Now, really quickly, I'm going to close by telling you why you should study philosophy. I think philosophy is intrinsically interesting and valuable. In philosophy, we distinguish two types of values. Intrinsic values are things that are valuable in and of themselves, just in its for its own sake. I think philosophy is valuable, and the things that we learn are worthwhile. But I think it's also extrinsically valuable. Extrinsic values are things that are valuable because they bring about something else that is itself intrinsically valuable. First of all, I think that philosophy enables you to, in a real measurable sense, become smarter. So, philosophy improves people's critical thinking skills and analytical skills, and this is backed by data. So, philosophy majors do better in logical and analytical thinking tests than any other majors, and they do better on mathematical tests than any other humanities majors. Philosophy graduates are attractive to prospective employers as well. So philosophy majors typically have higher salaries than any other humanities majors, and they gain these kind of practical skills in reasoning, decision making, analytical thinking, and clear, concise communications, reasoned communication, communication about our reasons for doing things, in a way that's very attractive to potential employers in a number of uh, different areas. Finally, I think philosophy helps us decide how to live our life. It allows you to kind of, in a really explicit way, think about what your values are and what sort of trajectory you want your life to have in the long term. And it gives you the tools to ask and answer those questions for yourself. Thanks for listening. Thanks for considering studying philosophy here at the University of Glasgow. You can email me here at michael.hicks@glasgow.ac.uk. I hope to see you very soon here in Glasgow.